Welcome back to Horror Story, everyone. For some people, it's travel season because it's now a vocation. Perhaps you're traveling abroad to explore beautiful locations, beaches, night markets, or stunning locations in Southeast Asia. Naturally, everyone will return home with their favorite souvenir. What if I told you, though, that not all of the souvenirs you bought can be taken home? Particularly in several countries. There are still places where people believe in ghosts and mysteries. Buying the wrong thing or any souvenir could bring misfortune upon you. Tonight's terrible narrative revolves around a group of Philippine travelers who did the worst mistakes. A middle-aged Silai from Philippine. Lisa is her name. A Cantonese slang term is Silai. Middle-aged housewives get referred to as Silai. They are usually married people who stay at home and are frequently described as talkative and heavily active in neighborhood rumors. It's more akin to calling someone a busybody auntie than it is an insult. A relative of Lisa's who was present at the beginning of this nightmare, which took place in the late 90s, related the following story. Stay tuned until the very end, because I usually offer any cultural background on this after our narrative. Together, let's dive into the narrative. At the time, Lisa was a decent person. She had lots of businesses and homes in the Philippine area, and was in her 40s. She was more than able to support herself on the rental money alone. In addition to not working, she didn't have many friends. They all bought pricey homes in the Philippines and made millions in the stock market. They were all essentially retired and were looking for ways of relaxing. They visited some countries frequently. A well-known group of Silai, all retired, wealthy, and constantly seeking adventure. It was Chiang Mai, Thailand, this time. A package tour for a week that was purchased from a travel agency in Philippines. Everything was planned, including the accommodations, flights, food, and sightseeing. The initial days fulfilled all their expectations. They took photos, tried local cuisine, and laughed like schoolgirls as they followed the tour bus from the temple to the market, to the cafe, to the waterfall. During breakfast at the hotel buffet on their last full day in Thailand, one of the women in their group made an unexpected comment. A distant relative of hers had been living in Thailand for 1 year now. He had just informed her that a shaman, or local spiritual guru, would be conducting a special ceremony that night. From the hotel they were staying, the place was just a short distance away. Intrigued, the woman leaned closer. Although it wasn't on the tour schedule, it seemed interesting, something different, an opportunity for seeing something amazing. They made jokes about requesting a blessing for longevity or good health or more luck in stocks. Although they weren't very superstitious, they were intrigued and they didn't have any other plans for the evening. The group of Sealies decided to get outside of their comfort zone after dinner. The 6 of them, without a tour guide, followed an ambiguous address written on the back of a hotel notepad. They had no idea what sort of ritual they were going to enter. From the outside, the building appeared to be a simple 1-story building hidden behind a small alleyway. But the women immediately realized that this was different from the temples they had been to earlier in the week. The air was empty of incense and golden Buddhas. Rather, the chamber was quiet and dark, with only oil lamps lining the walls for lighting. A strange talisman was suspended from the ceiling beams. It reminded them more of what they'd seen in Thai horror films than it did of religion. Folk magic is a mysterious and ancient tradition. The Sealies stopped, but they had already traveled thus far, and there were already perhaps 30 residents inside. All of them looked solemnly at the person in the middle of the room, the shaman, with offerings all about him, sitting cross-legged. Out of habit, the group shuffled around the room's perimeter, squeezing forward for a better look. Chanting, smoke, and sudden movements were all part of the roughly hour-long ceremony. It seemed more like an interesting performance to Lisa and the other women. Finally, the shaman arose and raised 3 strings of tattered dark prayer beads. He announced that 3 fortunate individuals in the room would receive these blessed gifts for free. The Seeleys didn't speak Thai, but one of the local people knew some Cantonese, so she helped translate for them. Everyone rushed forward trying to get one of the beads. Lisa didn't know what the beads were for, but they were free and only a few were given out. Before she even thought about it, Lisa raised her hand, and so did everyone else. Somehow, her hand was picked. Lisa was really excited. She laughed and held on to the beads like they were a treasure. None of them got one, only her. She felt lucky. In Cantonese, there's a saying, "Mo thaim sio bien e." It means, don't be too greedy for small things. Older people say it when something feels too good to be true. It's a quiet warning that free things sometimes have a hidden price. I think this saying fits Lisa's situation perfectly. Before the crowd left, the shaman gave the 3 people final instructions. They had to wear the beads every night, right before going to sleep. They also had to say a short prayer in Thai. He said it very slowly, word by word, until they remembered the rhythm. It was said to bring good luck, money, and success, but only if done regularly and with belief. Lisa didn't understand any of the words, but the short prayer was easy to remember, and the rhythm stayed in her head like a song. She said the words out loud over and over until she remembered them all. When she got back to the hotel, her friends made fun of her, partly joking and partly jealous. "You're the lucky one of them said. "If it really brings you money, you should take us out to eat." Lisa laughed and held on to the beads like they were a treasure. She felt like she was special. The next day, they got on the plane to fly back home to Philippines. The trip was over, but Lisa never forgot the beads. Every night before she went to sleep, she followed the steps exactly. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror, put the beads around her neck, and whispered the words again and again. At first, nothing happened. 2 weeks went by. No big win, no sudden luck. But then, Lisa started hearing a voice. It was soft at first, just a whisper in her right ear. It wasn't in Cantonese. She didn't know what it was saying. She thought maybe she had been up too late playing mahjong. Her friends teased her, saying she was too focused on the ritual. But Lisa kept going. She kept her routine. And the voice got louder, still not in a language she recognized, but somehow her body seemed to understand. One night, as she whispered the words to herself, her hands moved without her control. Her fingers curled and twisted, forming strange shapes in the air, like old symbols from a story. She didn't know what they meant. Her body just did it. It scared her. She decided to stop. No more beads, no more chanting, just to be safe. But it didn't work. The voice didn't stop. The hand movements continued, especially between 3 and 4 a.m., when Lisa would wake up sweaty and find her hands moving in the dark as if someone else was controlling her. Prince told her she looked tired. Then they said she looked sick. Her skin got pale and her face looked older, as if she had aged years in just a few weeks. But she still didn't know what the voice was saying. Every night it became clearer, and the voice never stopped. Eventually, Lisa started having trouble sleeping. When she finally managed to fall asleep, it was never peaceful. She had the same dream every night, always around 3 to 4 in the morning, without fail. In the dream, she stood inside an old wooden hut. It was somewhere warm and damp, like Southeast Asia. But it wasn't her. She wasn't in her own body. She was someone completely different. A man, probably in his 40s. His arms were lean and tanned from the sun. She could feel his muscles tighten as he shouted, feel his heart race. Across from him was a woman. She was young, crying and shouting back. The air was full of anger. It was the middle of a heated argument. Lisa didn't understand the words, but she could feel the rage clearly. It was intense. Then the dream would change. The man would be on top of a high building, a rooftop somewhere. Before she could react, before she could even move, he would run and jump off the edge. That's when she would wake up, her heart pounding, her body soaked with sweat. The same dream every time. Every night, she remembered more details. The woman's voice, the feel of the dirt floor in the hut, the wind on the rooftop. It wasn't just a dream, it felt more like a memory. But it wasn't hers. At first, Lisa didn't want to believe it, but after all the things that had happened, the voices, the hand signs, the nightmares, there was only one explanation that made sense. It had to be the beads. She took them from her drawer and threw them straight into the trash can. But the voices didn't stop. In fact, they became worse. Sometimes she heard them even during the day, like someone was standing right behind her. She saw doctor after doctor, different specialists, a neurologist, had scans and blood tests. Everything came back normal, and there was no answer for what was happening to her. That's when she remembered the tour guide from their trip. He had taken care of everything during the trip. Maybe he could help again. Lisa called him. She told him everything without holding back. The man listened carefully. After she finished, there was a long silence before he spoke. He had heard about this before, not often, but enough to know it wasn't just a myth. Some shamans in Thailand, not all, but a few, were known to place curses on unsuspecting tourists. They would give out free gifts or blessings, often during secret ceremonies, and those items would act as a link, a way for something else to reach the person. And after a while, when the person got desperate enough, the only way out was to return to the shaman who started it. Of course, getting rid of the curse wasn't cheap. It was like a spiritual form of blackmail, and for someone like Lisa, there wasn't another way. The guide agreed to help. He would arrange the trip, even go with her. He helped Lisa book her ticket for the same week. But something didn't want her to leave. On the day of her flight, Lisa arrived early at the airport. She looked really tired, far away, but still strong-willed. Then, while she was in line at the security check, a voice came back, loud and demanding, like it was right beside her. She tried to ignore it and keep going, but then she suddenly fainted. She fell right in the middle of the airport. An ambulance arrived. When she woke up, she was in the hospital. Doctors did more tests, but nothing showed up. No stroke, no seizure, nothing at all. Still, they made her stay overnight just to be safe. That night, Lisa was put in a private room on the 9th floor. No one knew what happened during the late hours. The nurse said the call button wasn't pressed. But at 3:47 a.m., Lisa jumped out of the window. After that, the tour guide, who was supposed to meet her, started telling his group not to take part in any rituals they didn't understand, and not to bring back anything just because it was free. So, what do you think happened to Lisa? There's a lot going on, but here's my idea. Lisa was tied to a soul through the beads. These prayer beads weren't just for prayer, they were a kind of binding object meant to connect the person wearing them with a spirit, probably the man from her dreams. In some Southeast Asian traditions, cursed objects are used to pass on a spirit to someone else, usually through a ritual or by touching something. Once the connection is made, it becomes permanent. Lisa kept waking up every night between 3 and 4 a.m. That's called the spirit hour in many Asian spiritual beliefs. It's the time when ghosts are especially strong and the boundary between the living and the dead is thin. That's why the spirit's power grew stronger at night, taking control of her body, entering her dreams, and eventually taking over completely. The nightmares she kept having weren't her own. They were a replay of the man's final moments, someone who died violently. Lisa saw herself in his body in the dream, which showed a kind of identity change, a sign that the spirit was joining with her, ready to take over her soul completely. The fall from the 9th floor wasn't Lisa ending her own life. I believe this was the full spiritual takeover. By the time Lisa tried to return to Thailand to remove the curse, it was too late. The connection was too strong and the spirit wouldn't let her go, because that would break their link. In many Thai and regional beliefs, people who die by their own hand have very strong spiritual energy, especially if it's due to emotional pain. These spirits can become powerful ghosts. Dark practitioners, especially in Thai occultism, may capture or bind these troubled spirits to things like bones, beads, or clothes through rituals at the place of death or using personal items. Sometimes they go to places where sad deaths occurred and call out to the spirits, offering them something to attach to, promising freedom or a purpose in exchange for being useful. Another possibility is that the man Lisa kept seeing in her dream was once a victim of the same shaman, someone who attended a ritual like Lisa did, and fell into the same trap, dying just as in Lisa's dream. His soul, unable to be reborn, may have been trapped on purpose in the prayer beads. We'll never know, but it's possible that Lisa became the next wandering spirit, another spirit to be used by the shaman for money. The free beads were the lure, and by accepting them, wearing them, and chanting the mantra, Lisa unknowingly made herself a vessel. So, if you ever go to Southeast Asia, remember, not everything you see is safe to take home. Thanks for joining me for this week's episode.